What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. Today, we are doing the 1,000 subscriber question and answer special here on the channel. You guys have really come out for that Q&A, and we're going to go ahead and answer all the questions here. We've got questions from Twitter, we've got questions from the YouTube community post, and we've got questions from the comments of the Send Your Questions video for the 1,000 subscriber Q&A. So let's jump into those. We're going to start off with the Twitter questions. First question comes from Johnny and Buzz TKO on Twitter, and they ask, do you watch wrestling, whether it's AEW or WWE? I actually do not watch any sort of wrestling. I do have friends that are really into wrestling and looking to actually go into wrestling school at the moment. But I don't watch AEW or WWE. I think it's a really cool sport, and I would definitely be interested if I had more an interest in it. But I watch other sports. I watch the MLB. I watch NFL. There's a lot of other sports, and of course, motorsports, not to mention on that. And I also do a lot of other projects that really, unfortunately, take me out of the loop of watching it. I think those sports are really cool, but in my opinion, I don't really watch wrestling, to be honest with you. Next questions we got 3 questions from a fellow fan of mine who's been a fan for the last couple of years, Enon Striker to 222, and he asked 3 questions on Twitter. The first question is, what are your thoughts on Hot Wheels cars? What is your thoughts on those? In my opinion, I think Hot Wheels cars are cool. I don't really have any Hot Wheels cars myself, unfortunately, but I do think Hot Wheels cars are very cool, to be honest with you. I think they're pretty awesome, and I definitely need to start collecting some of those Hot Wheels cars. I don't really collect them as much. I used to back in the day when I was a little kid, but I really don't really have any Hot Wheels cars, unfortunately, to be honest with you. Question number 2 he asked is said, how many temper flares do you think we'll see this year? If this year's like the Busch Light Clash, which I don't know if that race will be different or not, but if anything, if the Busch Light Clash is really an indication how many tempers we're going to have this year, oh boy, we're going to see a lot of tempers flaring. We're probably going to see a lot of tensions flaring between drivers throughout this year, and wouldn't shock me if we see a lot, but anything can happen throughout the year. I would not be surprised if we see a lot, and I would not be surprised if we see not that many this year. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but let's see how many temper flares we get this year. And a final question from Xenon Striker 222 asks, do you enjoy the Crank It Ups? Yes, one of the few things I actually like about Fox. I do not like Fox's coverage most of the time, but one thing I have to give Fox a lot of credit for, one, I love their theme music they bring in, the old school theme music they bring in. The other thing I really like about Fox is the Crank It Ups. It's one of my favorite things Fox does, even if their production can be really bad at points. I do like the Crank It Ups. That is a thumbs up in my opinion. I do like the Crank It Ups. Next questions we got are 2 questions from John Skates. Now, John Skates has another question we'll answer later in this episode. And he asks, what is your top 5 favorite paint schemes of all time? This one is a very trick question because it kind of fluctuates every point. Of course, you have the classics like Jeff Gordon's Rainbow Warrior scheme. You've got Tony Stewart's Home Depot car, an Office Depot car. You've got Carl Edwards' Aflac car. Of course, the STP colors. The Intimidator colors, the black Intimidator colors, a lot of iconic, the Wood Brothers car, of course, so many iconic cars that it's very tough to say for me what a top 5 is. It just fluctuates from time to time what my top 5 are. I go kind of like top 5 every year, not just top 5 all time. It kind of fluctuates between year over year, but I do like a lot of paint schemes, and a lot of paint schemes talk about on the channel, even in the news videos, I really like talking about, so it's definitely an interesting question for sure as well. The other question that John Skates asked and said, if you could add any track to the schedule, what would it be? I want to come back to a racetrack that we actually used to race in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, and I've seen a lot of people that have been begging and pushing for this track. Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal. Every single year we raced at that track in the NASCAR Xfinity Series was always bangers, always spectacular, always beating the banging road course racing, always tempers flaring, always crazy restarts. It had all of those every single year, and I think that Circuit Gilles Villeneuve needs to return. I know we can't be up in Canada right now due to the border restrictions up in Canada at the moment, but I really do believe that we need to go back to Canada, and if we do go back to Canada, we need to go back to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. That has to 1,000% be a prioritized track for a race, to be honest with you. We need to go back to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. The next questions we got 2 questions from David E. Rodriguez on Twitter. And they asked, since when did you start watching NASCAR? I became a NASCAR fan in the middle of 2007. I don't exactly remember which race I watched. My dad was an RC racer back in the day. And from time to time, my dad actually used to watch NASCAR. And my dad was a big fan of the Ford Thunderbird. So he really became a fan of Bill Elliott back in the 1980s in the early 1990s. And my dad, by the way, was not really a big fan of Dale Earnhardt. I've been a big NASCAR fan, though, since 2007, but I've been more of a hardcore fan really for the last for the last decade or so is really when I started taking the sport a lot more seriously. When I became a fan, I didn't watch full races, only watched the beginning and the end of races, but over time, I grew into watching basically the full races. So that's a good question. I became a fan of the sport in 2007. The other question that David E. Rodriguez asked says, what are your top 5 favorite NASCAR drivers? I actually did make a video on this channel. You should definitely go check that out. I made a video on my top 10 favorite NASCAR drivers going into 2021. But here I'll tell you my top 5 favorite drivers in particular order. In first place, Kyle Larson. Second place, I've got Chase Elliott. Third place, I've got Ryan Blaney. Fourth place, I've got Martin Truex Jr. And in fifth position, I have got Bubba Wallace. Kyle Larson's been my favorite driver since 2000, really since about 2015, 2016. He's been my favorite driver really since Tony Stewart unfortunately retired. Chase Elliott I've always been a big fan of. I've always been a big fan of Ryan Blaney as well. Martin Truex Jr., I really like the story, his underdog story coming up and winning the championship with Furnish Row Racing. That's one thing I really like about Martin Truex Jr. And then Bubba Wallace, I've always been a big fan of Bubba Wallace really since 2012 and 2013. I'm not a bandwagon Bubba Wallace fan. Those are my top favorite drivers, though, in NASCAR. Now we're jumping into the YouTube community post. We've got a couple questions from the YouTube community post. The first question is actually a two-part question. This is from Clayton Harris, a loyal fan of this channel for a couple of years. The question he asked, it says, what are you looking most forward to in 2022? And what are you looking least forward to in 2022? This is a very tough and very trick question. For me, what I'm looking most forward to, there's a lot of things I'm looking forward to. Practice qualifying somewhat coming back, which is kind of something I'm least looking forward to because it's not full practice, but I'm happy practice qualifying is coming back. Fact, we have a new car, which is expected to race better. 670 horsepower engines at every track except the super speedways. If I had something I'm not as looking forward to is probably the Atlanta Motor Speedway reconfiguration. I know I've not seen a race at that track, but I'm really skeptical overall about that race, and also probably Texas Motor Speedway, to be honest with you. I don't expect Texas to be a good race at the next-gen car, and I don't really think it's going to be a good race. So I'm definitely looking forward to a new car with higher horsepower. I'm not looking forward to the new Atlanta repave, and I'm not also really looking forward to the race at Texas Motor Speedway. I'm not a big fan of Texas Motor Speedway, as you probably can tell from a lot of my Twitter posts and also probably from some of my YouTube videos. The next question we've got is from Jazz Ratchet and Clark, and he says, who do you think is going to win the Daytona 500? I have a video that's actually going to be coming here on Tuesday that you guys are going to see where I will do my Daytona 500 predictions. If you want to hear who I think is going to win the Daytona 500, you should definitely go check out that predictions video because I will have the predictions for the winner, the suck, and the underdog pick, and all the ones you need to watch. You'll see that in the Daytona 500 predictions video on this upcoming Tuesday that's coming out here on Tuesday. The next question we've got is from Scottman Productions 83, and they ask, what is your favorite diecast any scale? This is a tough question for me to answer because I actually really, unfortunately, don't collect diecast. I'm not someone who really collects diecast, unfortunately, so I don't really know what a good answer would be in regards to what is my favorite diecast. There are a lot of good-looking diecasts, don't get me wrong, but this is a question I really cannot, unfortunately, answer because I don't really have as much knowledge on diecast collecting, to be honest with you, so I don't really know what my favorite diecast is. There's a lot of awesome diecasts out there, don't get me wrong, but I actually do not know what my favorite diecast is. I don't have a lot of knowledge on diecasts, to be honest with you. And now we're jumping into all the questions from the video, the Send Your Questions video. First one, we've got a plethora of questions from Connor Clark. First question he asks is, do you think that Kaulig is going to expand to a 3 or 4 car team by 2024? Somewhat, and yes, I do think that they will be a 3-car team by 2024. I don't think they'll be a 4-car team. I think they're going to have 2 full-time cars, and then they're going to have an all-star car mixed up with multiple drivers by 2024. I don't see them expanding to a 4-car team. I think the charter system will still be around by 2024. Yes, I know there's maybe talk, maybe it could go away at some point, but I don't think the drivers and the teams are going to want to get rid of that. So I think they will be a 3-car team, but I do not think they'll be a 4-car team by 2024. Next question Connor Clark asks, do you think that Kevin Harvick retires after 2023? This is a very simple answer. Yes, absolutely. Kev Harvick by the end of the year is going to be 47, and he'll be on the verge of turning 48 in December. Kev Harvick is the oldest current NASCAR Cup Series driver, and I think that Kev Harvick wants to get into the world of announcing, and I think that he unfortunately wants to retire from NASCAR Cup Series competition. Plus, he's got a son that's also currently racing, who's going to be, I think, 11 or 12 by that point, and is going to be on the verge of almost being eligible to race in the ARCA West and ARCA East Series, because you can start racing that series when you're 15 years old. And Keelan is going to be about 12 or 13 years old by that point, and he's been doing racing himself. So I don't think that Kevin Harvick will be racing after 2023, and will probably do more of the broadcasting side of things. And the final question Connor Clark's asked, he asked, will Ty Gibbs replace Kyle Busch in 2023? I think Ty Gibbs potentially could jump up the Cup in 2023, but I don't think he'll replace Kyle Busch. I think Kyle Busch will find a sponsor. I've seen a lot of people talking about maybe Menards could be able to take the sponsorship, and we've seen Kyle Busch having more sponsorship and commercial work with Menards. I wouldn't be surprised if Menards works with KFB, but I think if Ty Gibbs does jump up the Cup in 2023, it won't be Kyle Busch who replaces. I think it's going to be Martin Truex Jr. Martin Truex Jr. is going to be by 42 at the end of the year, and Martin Truex Jr. in the past has been open about saying, hey, the car is not really good. I may just go ahead and retire. So if he does end up going in the Cup, Ty Gibbs, I think he is going to go ahead and replace Martin Truex Jr. in the NASCAR Cup Series. The next couple questions we've got is from a channel called Pickle Dills Boys, and they have two questions asked. He or she says, who is the GOAT of NASCAR you think? This is a tough question because for me, I would definitely say Jimmie Johnson. However, it's also very tough to say because there's so many different eras of the sport, and you really cannot say who is the best, really, because it comes from different eras of the sport, right? So it's really tough to say. So for me, I would say Jimmie Johnson, but you can definitely make an argument for guys like Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt as well, since both of them are 7-time champions. And you even can make an argument for even David Pearson and Jeff Gordon as well as some of NASCAR's GOATs. But if I had to choose, I would go ahead and say Jimmie Johnson. And the other question he has is, what is your favorite food? My favorite food, of course, is having a cheeseburger. I love cheeseburgers. Cheeseburgers are really, really good, tasty, especially rare or medium rare cheeseburgers. I love cheeseburgers. They're my favorite food. I eat a lot of different types of food, but one of my favorite things I always eat, of course, is a cheeseburger. One of my favorite kind of burgers is a 24 burger from Conquer Grill. If you live in the St. Louis area, you know what I'm talking about. Conquer Grill's got really, really good food, and they have this 24 burger with port wine cheese. That's one of my favorite things I've ever eaten, and I always think it's a really, really good burger. So my favorite food is a cheeseburger. The next question we got is from Mary Haston, and she asks, do you think Ryan Newman will come back to a ride to a team in the future in NASCAR? I think Ryan Newman could come back, but however, I think it will only be a one-off return. And I think if he comes back, it will be with like that Truck DCC racing organization that he tried to get into the Truck Series race last year at Bristol Dirt. Unfortunately, did not make it in due to the fact that that team didn't have points, and unfortunately, that race got rained out. But I think if we do see Ryan Newman come back to NASCAR Cup Series, I do think Cup Series will only be a one-off at Bristol Dirt. Ryan Newman is going to be 45 this year, and I think that head injury really affected Ryan Newman. So he may come back on a one-off, but I don't expect Ryan Newman to come on anything other than a one-off, to be honest with you. Next question we got is from John Skates once again, and he asked, what is your favorite NASCAR video game of all time? This one is going to be very blasphemous, but I've never done NR 2003, and I've never played NASCAR Thunder 2004. I know it's very, very blasphemous, but I've never played those games before. So for me, I have to go back to some of the OGs. I actually do like NASCAR to Game Inside Line as a game I've played. I also really do like playing NASCAR Heat, NASCAR 4, whatever it was. There's a couple games I really, really enjoy and really, really like. But if I had played those games like NASCAR Thunder 2004 and some of those EA games, I definitely would say I like those games. But unfortunately, I just don't have a lot of experience with the NASCAR EA games, except like NASCAR 8 and NASCAR 9. But I have played NASCAR Thunder 2003, and I will say I actually do enjoy that game. So if I had to say, I also say NASCAR Thunder 2003 is up there for me in games I've played, to be honest with you. The next question we've got is from a YouTuber called RacingFan5, and they asked, do you think that Cliff and Kyle can be the new GOAT of the sport? This is very, very tough to say. I do think at this era, they absolutely can. I think Kyle Larson and Cliff Dinos have a really, really good relationship. However, do I think they'll be the GOATs of the sport? No, I do not see Kyle Larson winning 7 championships. Yet again, we did see Jimmie Johnson get only his first championship when he was 31 years old and went on to win 7 championships in a matter of 11 years. But Kyle Larson has a lot more competition, and with the points formatted system, I don't see Kyle Larson winning 7 championships and even as many races as Jimmie Johnson did. But I do think that Kyle Larson does, and I repeat, does have somewhat of a chance to at least get a couple championships and get somewhat up there with, I think, around 50 to 60 wins. I think he'd be the best of this era, but I don't see Kyle Larson being the new GOAT of NASCAR, unfortunately, to be honest with you. Next question we've got is from Coleslaw Custard, and they ask is if, hypothetically, Ryan Newman replaces Kyle Larson, can he win, or is he not that good anymore? I don't see Ryan Newman forming up to Kyle Larson's level in any shape or form. He may surprise with a victory, but I'll be honest with you, I expect if we see or ever see Ryan Newman he taking over instead of Kyle Larson, Ryan Newman probably will perform at the same level as either Dale Jr. did in 2017 or if Mark Martin did near the end of his career at Hendrick Motorsports. Sadly, I don't think Ryan Newman would have done good, and I think a lot of it had to do with his brain injury. Had he gone before 2020? Maybe, but honestly, I think even Ryan Newman probably wouldn't perform as good. He may have gotten a win, but to be honest and sincere with you, I don't really think that Ryan Newman will perform at the same level as Kyle Larson. I just think Kyle Larson is one of the best drivers we've got in this era right now, and I don't see Ryan Newman ever performing, would have never really performed up to that level, to be honest with you. The next question we got is from Eric Marchesini, a loyal fan of this channel, and he asked, are you planning to attend the IndyCar race at Gateway in August? This one's a very tough question. I really do not know if I'm going to be going to the IndyCar race at Gateway yet. I am for sure going to the Cup Series race at Gateway and maybe the Truck Series race as well. I might also go out to the SRX race at I-55 since I live really close to the track, but unfortunately I'm not really sure if I'm going to make it out to that this year. So I'm not entirely sure. Depends on scheduling, conflict stuff, and whatever happens in my life here in the next few months. I don't know if I'll be out there. I might go there. We'll have to wait and see. I've come close to going out to the Gateway IndyCar race in the past, but to be honest with you, I'm not really sure if I'm going to be out at the IndyCar race at Gateway, to be honest with you. The next question I've got is from Ann Waybright Butzko. We've got first, and we asked in the first question, and they asked, do you watch cartoons? And if so, what are your favorite cartoons? This one's easy, SpongeBob. I like the old SpongeBob, the OG SpongeBobs. The newer ones, not so much, but the older OG SpongeBob episodes before the movie came out in 2004, the old OG SpongeBob episodes were absolutely awesome and even funny for me. And I, from time to time, do go back and watch SpongeBob. Even as a 22-year-old, I do go back and watch SpongeBob. I think there's so many iconic lines that have come from SpongeBob that I really, really love that show. That is my favorite cartoon ever, to be honest with you. And the next question we've got 3 questions, are from Elliot Drummond. And he asked 3 questions. First question is Gordon Earnhardt. This one's easy for me, Jeff Gordon. This one will be very, very controversial for Dale Earnhardt fans, but if it's going to come off of fandom, I think Jeff Gordon is a guy I would go for over Dale Earnhardt. I think Dale Earnhardt is one of the greatest drivers ever raced in NASCAR, but I've always been a big fan of Jeff Gordon really since the beginning of my time as a fan. So I have to say Jeff Gordon, unfortunately, but I will say that I have a lot of respect for Dale Earnhardt as a driver as well. Second question Elliot Drummond has, he asks, who are the GOATs? To me, there's 4 or 5 drivers you can consider the GOAT in NASCAR. Jimmie Johnson, Dale Earnhardt, Jeff Gordon, Richard Petty, David Pearson. If you say anybody else is the GOAT right now, you're kind of a little bit foolish. I think those are only 5 drivers as of now you can make an argument for. Now, if we see other drivers come out of nowhere and start winning an insane amount of races, which the format really is going to be hard to predict that, but if we see a lot of drivers start winning a ton of championships and winning races, then you can make arguments for those guys and those drivers. But I think that those are the only 5 GOATs that you can really consider for the greatest drivers. And then the third and final question Elliot Drummond has, he asks, Chad Knaus, thoughts? One of the greatest crew chiefs ever and the mastermind behind Hendrick Motorsports' success last year. And one of the big reasons Jimmie Johnson was able to be extremely successful as a NASCAR driver in his career. Without Chad Knaus, I don't think Jimmie Johnson would have been able to perform as good as he did in the Cup Series. And also not to mention, he's working as one of the higher-ups at Hendrick Motorsports and one of the people that's been behind the huge success and resurgence of Hendrick Motorsports in 2021. So I think Chad Knaus is awesome, and I like Chad Knaus a lot. I think he's a great person and an awesome guy who's been working Hendrick. And the final question he's got is from one YouTuber who has 9 questions. MS sent me 9 questions. We're going to answer all of them here. First question they asked, and this is a lot to do with 2022. First question they asked is that, is JD Motorsports a 4-car full-time cars in 2022? Nope, they're a 2-car team in 2022. Ryan Vargas will be in the 6-car, and Bailey Curry will be in the 4-car full-time in 2022. I think it's very, very smart for them to go from a 4-car team to a 2-car team. They're taking the Rick Ware approach. I think one of the reasons that they have struggled, especially over the last couple of years, is because they've had too many cars in their system. I think only having 2 cars will not only help Bailey Curry's success, but also have Ryan Vargas' success in 2022 as well. So I think it's a great decision that they went down from 4 to 2 cars. The second question they asked is that will Junior Motorsports run 88 more than 15 races in 2022? We do know that car is going to run at least 4 races in 2022. Miguel Poto will run 3 of those races on 3 road courses, and Junior will be at the opening race, will be at the Martinsville race. I think it's very possible, especially if some Hendrick guys like Alex Bowman, William Byron, Chase Slater, Kyle Larson get in there, and maybe even Carson Kvapil gets an opportunity. Maybe they put those guys in there, but I'm not honestly sure if they'll run that car more. But I would not be surprised if we see some Hendrick drivers run some of those races in that other Junior Motorsports car, that 5th Junior Motorsports car, since Rick Hendrick has ownership of Junior Motorsports. The third question he asked is that will Morgan Shepherd's team race in 2022? They're planning to, but they need sponsorship to run. So they're probably going to need a sponsor driver to run this year, but they are trying to run this year in 2022. They do want to race. It's unclear, though, what driver is going to race this year. So I'll have to wait and see what happens, but they're trying to get out there and trying to find a driver to race in 2022. Fourth question this person has is, what is the latest news for Roger Carter? Probably the same thing you've heard. They're trying to run that this year. It's a very controversial team. It's unclear if they're going to show up. The people they've got running the team are very, very controversial and very, very sketchy. But if they do show up, fair play to them. But honestly, I'm a little skeptical on this team, to be honest with you, so I'm not really sure. The fifth question they asked is that, is Kyle Weatherman running full-time in 2022 with DGM Racing? No. Kyle Weatherman right now only has 4 races planned with the team, and I do believe they're going to try to run him a few more races this year with DGM Racing if he gets sponsorship to come and run the team. But only right now, I think he's only got 4 races. I could be wrong on that part. He may have more, but I think he's got 4 races as right now in 2022 with DGM Racing. The sixth question they have is that, is DGM bringing back Alex Labbe in 2022? As a matter of fact, earlier today, when you're watching this, is Sunday, but basically technically yesterday, they actually announced Alex Labbe is going to drive in 2022 for this team for 18 races. He'll race at Daytona, and will drive a majority of races in the 36 cars. So yes, we're going to see Alex Labbe back in the NASCAR Xfinity Series in 2022 for more than half the season. If they can find sponsorship for him, maybe they'll run him more this year, but he's going to need sponsorship if he's going to run more races than 18 like he did last year. Question number 7. What is Mike Harmon's plans with the team for 2022? Greg Alden's going to be in the 47 at Daytona, and Tim Veens will be in a 74 car at Daytona. After Daytona, it's very unclear if we're going to see anybody else in the cars, but we'll have to wait and see. It's just a scheduling conflicts, but those will be the 2 drivers at Daytona. Question number 8, did Chris Laverty retired? Chris Laverty's not raced since 2014 or 2015 in NASCAR, so he probably honestly did end up retiring. Unfortunately, he died in a run after that, so I'm going to say yes, Chris Laverty retired. And the final question is actually the last question of this Q&A. MS asked finally, whatever happened to Stacey Copland's Truck Series team? This is a very tough question to ask. I think the last time they raced was 2011, and I think he tried to move up his team up to the Cup Series in 2012 when he tried to make a return to the Cup Series with that 74 Industry Ventures racing team in 2012, or whatever the hell that team was. He tried to race in 2012 and really unfortunately failed trying to come back to the NASCAR Cup Series. So they tried to do it with Cole Witt in 2011, but they have not raced in the Truck Series. So I think that's what happened to Stacey Copland's team after 2011. So anyway, that is your 1,000 subscriber Q&A video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, turn notifications to be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow my Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Links description below for that, and comment me your thoughts on today's video. What are your thoughts about this Q&A? Let me know in the comments below. Once again, I know I've said this a lot, but thank you guys so much for your continued support. I may have 1 or 2 other specials that are coming out for 1,000 subscribers. It's going to depend on the schedule. And with how busy the schedule is going to be this week, I'm not sure if there will be any more specials for 1,000 subscribers. But just so you guys know, I do continue to appreciate all the support you guys give me, and I'm really excited for what's coming throughout the rest of this year. So anyway, guys, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care, everybody.